Hello and welcome to Codish, an exploration of the lives of modern developers. Join us as we dive into topics like languages and frameworks, data and event-driven architectures, artificial intelligence, and individual and team productivity. Tailored to developers and engineering leaders, this episode is part of our Tools and Tips series.
Hello, welcome to Codish. My name is Julián Duque. I'm Principal Developer Advocate at Heroku, and I'm your host for the Codish podcast. And today with me, I have Freedom Dumlao, CTO of Vestmark. Freedom, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Julián.
Before we start, please, what is Vestmark? What do you do? Tell me a little bit more.
So Vestmark is a wealth tech company. We have a little over 1.7 trillion in assets under management. Our customers are asset management firms. So we currently have 6 of the 10 largest asset management firms in North America as part of our customer base. And we've been growing that customer base into retail investment advisories and other firms that can make use of our portfolio management and trading technology.
Beautiful. So we are right now in the era of AI and agentic applications.
Oh, yeah.
It become like the thing to talk about.
That's right.
Everybody's implementing systems and migrating to AI. What's Vestmark doing on that area?
So we've been working with building agentic systems since the time where agent wasn't necessarily the buzzword that it is today.
Okay, yeah.
So as soon as we started getting access to large language model technology at Vestmark, the question we asked ourselves is, what is a thing I can do now that I couldn't do when I didn't have this technology, right? And I think everyone looks at AI and they say, oh, well, you know, they obviously gravitate towards some kind of a chatbot,
Yes.
right? That's a chat assistant thing, or some kind of note-taking or note summarizer application or whatever. And those are interesting tools, and I think they're very valuable. But to us, it was important to look, well, what's now possible that wasn't possible before? Because we had chatbots before,
Yes.
right? We had note-taking apps. They're better now with large language models. And so for us, we started looking at some of the workflows that our clients spend a lot of time doing, things that aren't as necessarily essential to the work that they do. And we wanted to solve the problem of scaling them up so that they could do more with the time that they've got in their day. So we focused our first AI product. We just launched it. It's called the Advisor Assistant, and it's a tool for financial advisors that gives them a bunch of agentic capabilities that help them to solve problems that they have throughout their day-to-day. It gives them sort of a virtual home office, if you will, to work with. They can use it to automatically generate proposals, which is something that's been very time-consuming for them in the past. They can use it to automatically update and manage client details and information. It's a really incredible start to a set of tools that we're bringing to market for our clients.
Beautiful. You mentioned initially that most of the apps we have seen out there using generative AI are
That's right.
chatbots or assistants. You are like interacted with this technology like through text.
That's right.
With the tool you launch, what's the difference? How users interact with it? What's like the UX looks like?
So in this case, it is a chatbot, but
Okay.
it is our first one that we've launched, and so we knew that would be the best way to introduce our clients to this technology was through a chatbot. But what we wanted to make sure it was doing, what we were seeing at the time when we started building this thing is most of these tools, what they looked like was a question and answer kind of chatbot, like, oh, how do I do this? Or some way of getting some support or researching data from a knowledge base. And we wanted this to be a tool that does a thing, like actually goes and performs a task without the financial advisor having to sit there and like come up with answers to questions. So a typical financial advisor generating a proposal for their client, for example, using our proposal tool, it's as efficient as can be, but historically what they have to do is fill out a bunch of form fields, answer a bunch of questions, and ultimately they submit that and then proposal gets generated. And if they want to do a few proposals with different ideas, it could take some time putting all that together. With the advisor assistant, the financial advisor can just go into the assistant and say, hey, I'm meeting with the Smith family. We already know about the Smith family, and I would like to come up with some proposals for them. And if the advisor wanted to, they could have the assistant generate 100 proposals and pick the 10 best based on some criteria, and it'll do that for them automatically. They don't have to just sit there all day and generate proposals manually. It's something that we know really accelerates an advisor, especially in their ability to get ready for meetings that they're going to be having with their clients every day.
Beautiful. And this solution is just like a single agent, or do you have like a multi-agent architecture? How are you now trying to solve this type of like new architectures and new problems with
Yeah,
that?
that's a great question. So it is a multi-agent architecture. And what we learned pretty quickly is that, again, we started building this product before MCP actually was a defined protocol. But we were already working with tool calls and things like that even before MCP. And we learned early on that you can get a lot of pollution when you have too many tools available to any given agent, right? So if you've just got dozens and dozens of tools, your agent is going to struggle to pick the right tool for the job at some point. And we also learned that there's this concept that's later been defined as context rot.
Yes.
So even if you have a really nice context window, and we keep seeing like new agents or new foundation models with bigger and bigger context windows, it doesn't really matter that much, because at some point you kind of fall off a cliff and the context is rotted away and you got to refresh or branch off from some earlier point. We saw those problems early on, and one of the solutions that we came up with was building an agent-to-agent sort of connectivity. Nice. So if you've got multiple
before A2A.
Before A2A,
okay,
yes.
So you are like ahead of.
Yeah, when we saw the Google announcement about A2A, we were like, hey, we're doing that. So
can we have this?
Yeah,
nice.
It just seemed like the natural way to move forward with what we were doing. So what we wanted to be able to do is say, hey, the financial advisor has a task they want to accomplish. That task is going to need a certain set of tools. So why give it every possible tool? Once we know what the task is, hand that work off to an agent that can then perform the task using the tools that are necessarily just for that task. And so the primary agent is really a broker for sub-agents to do the additional tasks. That felt like a natural way to build it. So I used to work on a product called Alexa, and it was very similar at the time. We would have an intent engine to kind of figure out what was the intent of the initial request. Sometimes it was weather, but most of the time it was play Baby Shark when I was working there. But once we knew the intent, we would know, okay, which set of skills do we want to give this intent to figure out who should be responding to that. And I'm looking at agent to agent as an evolution of that kind of algorithmic thinking, right? So it's very similar.
That's beautiful. I've been like playing with different orchestration tools like for agents. I building agents with Agentforce or LangGraph. Like Mastra for TypeScript. I'm a JavaScript, Node.js developer, so I always try to look like the technologies I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
So I know you work with Ruby, but I don't know how's the AI ecosystem in Ruby. Could you tell me a little bit more about how can I start building as a Ruby developer AI and agents with Ruby libraries?
Oh yeah, I mean, every programming language has come up with great ways to work with large language models and to start building these kinds of capabilities. Python definitely got the head start there, right? We look at Python, you look at LangChain, you look at LangGraph, and you see a lot of work going into building a comprehensive system for constructing a large language model application. And I think every other, JavaScript has some great tech as well that's sort of spawned from that. Even as we started our journey down this large language model application path, we started with LangGraph as well because it seemed like the natural choice.
Yes.
The painful part was now I have this other thing in this other language, and everything else I've got is in Ruby. When I want to talk with the large language model, it's like now I've got to make this like service call, and I'm smuggling credentials across the wire to make sure that the agent can't do something that the user can't do, and it started to get very complex, and it didn't feel like it needed to be. So I talked with other people in the Ruby community, and by and large, two main Ruby gems were mentioned everywhere I went. Number one was RubyLLM by Carmine Paulino, I think is his name. Yes. And I mean, he's not the only contributor to it at this point. I think it's grown tremendously. And Active Agents by a gentleman named Justin Bowen. I think that's also got many contributors beyond him as well.
Active Agents, that's like a very fitting name for the Ruby ecosystem, yeah.
Yeah, Active Agents is, if you're already building a Rails app, Active Agents fits in with the way that you build a Rails app. And so you create an agent, you define an agent in a very Rails-ish way, which is nice. RubyLLM is, I'd say, a step below that and a bit broader, and it comes with so many capabilities out of the box. In fact, if you have a Rails app, you can add the RubyLLM gem, and then you can generate a sort of like a chat interface that works with whatever large language model you're working with, and have a working UI with chat interface just by running a generate command. Also very Ruby and Rails-ish. For us, that tool was, that RubyLLM tool became a natural fit for us. You can define tools as Ruby methods very easily and just give them to the RubyLLM main class. So you can just plug in tools very easily. Orchestration in Ruby, for anybody who's ever used Ruby, Ruby is phenomenal at things like state machines and orchestration systems. And the other stuff that's in these, like LangGraph and LangChain, is the connectivity, the HTTP requests out to things. RubyLLM, of course, handles that too, because it's mostly those are API calls. So for us, that was a pretty natural fit into our stack, and it allowed us to speed up development.
Beautiful. So there's like a multiple different providers that you can use with RubyLLM.
That's
like
right.
If I can use like different models, and you're just like, it's like an external gem that you add to it, or like RubyLLM already has like that.
RubyLLM will work with, at least it'll work with all of the ones that we use. So anything that's using the OpenAI spec, it'll work. So if you're using the Heroku AI, for example, it'll work fine with that, no problem. If you're using Bedrock, it has no problem using that as well. There may be some esoteric foundation model that hasn't yet been added, but I'm guessing they'd be happy to take a pull request if somebody wanted to add that capability.
Because with some providers, with LangChain, with the AI SDK, I have to like build for a Heroku AI, build a specific provider just to, like basic generations work, but like more complex things like a function calls or structure outputs, things that are not like 100% OpenAI compatible in different models. Like Bedrock, for example, doesn't have like native structure outputs.
That's right.
You will need to implement like either like through tool calling or prompt engineering. So there is like a minor tweaks that you have to do to the provider.
Yeah.
So what I see there is that there is also like a good opportunity for like open source developers like me and like contributors at our company or yourself as well to like add these capabilities to these libraries.
Absolutely. There's plenty, and it's growing incredibly fast. I would say the amount of contributions that I've seen, and I'm just looking at it as an outsider and a consumer of this gem. But just seeing the amount of contributions getting added and merged into the Ruby AI ecosystem, it's thrilling to watch, right? Because you can see the gravity. Sometimes when you use a technology like Ruby, which is foundational, but also it's been around for a very long time, right? And so people get this, it's funny, like at least once a year, somebody's gonna post something on Reddit, like, oh, is Ruby dead? Like, this question always comes up, which is crazy to me. But then you see this, right? You see this community swarm of people who are building and increasing these capabilities, and like we're so far from dead. Like we're way out ahead. I think Ruby also happens to be a particularly good language for this, for a couple of reasons. The language itself is just built to be very easy for a person to mentally adapt to whatever programming model they're used to. So if you're trying to build something or change data or change an interface or work with it in a slightly different way, it's very flexible and it'll bend to whatever paradigm you're trying to create. So you're not really stuck with any particular modality in the way that you use it.
Beautiful. I always seen like Ruby as a beautiful language to work with.
Yeah.
Like I'm reading Ruby code. I used to write Ruby like back in the day. Right now, sadly, I don't have that opportunity. But still, it's pretty readable, and I think for now these new agentic and AI applications, that could be like a good way for people that are not familiar to building this type of apps, like using a language as like as simple
That's
as
right.
Ruby to build this. One question, like semi-related, and I want to have your opinion as a technical person and developer.
Sure.
What's your take on using AI assistants to write code? Have you like used those? How they perform with Ruby code, for example? Because I know they are like great at doing Python and maybe JavaScript, but other programming languages, there might not be that amount of training data out there.
Yeah.
Right now, what the current status for Ruby with coding agents?
I think it's a great question. We use it. We use Claude Code, we use Cursor, we use Codex, ChatGPT. So we try to give our engineering team access to whatever the best possible tools are to help them choose the path that makes them the most productive. My experience with it has been, I got off to an early start when Copilot was first released from GitHub. And I was so delighted that it was like this super autocomplete, right? Like I'd start typing a method and it would complete the whole method for me. And I was like, wow, this is great. And I evolved along with everybody else as the capabilities of these things became better. And then learned very quickly that when you start asking like Claude Code, for example, to do something much bigger, it will certainly do something bigger, but not always what you want it to do.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. With Ruby code, it's interesting. It has no trouble at all writing good Ruby code, but Rails itself has had so many updates since these models have been trained, and those updates have represented big improvements in what's possible. So for example, from Rails 8 onward, there's a built-in authentication capability. So historically, when you've built a Rails app, you almost always reach for devise, right? But now you don't have to. If you want a simpler authentication, you can use the one from Rails. So if you ask Claude Code to start building you a Rails app, naturally it just reaches for devise and pulls it right in, and you're like, I didn't want that.
Yes.
What I found is, write the ClaudeMD file or write the agent.md file, give it the extra context, and then share that with the other developers in your team, and everyone will get that sort of consistent experience. The nice thing about Ruby code, especially though in this case, is these systems generate a bunch of code very fast if you're not careful. And what I really appreciate is that when I have to dive into the code because the agent has generated so much and now I've got to look at it, I'm diving into Ruby, which is very, very easy to read. So even if the code was just this enormous ball of nonsense, it's easy to follow and easy to read. It's easy to just dive into one particular place and be like, And I think that's important. Like whatever language you choose, if you're doing vibe coding or just building parts of your system with an agent, you got to ask yourself, what's the story when the agent ends and the human developer begins and picks up?
Yeah.
Where are they going to be when that moment occurs? Because in every development process, that's very likely to happen.
And I really like that now people is getting conscious and starting like to implement this more, is that we are getting to the more spec-driven approach.
Yes.
Okay, like let's start from a pretty well-defined spec with a pretty well-defined architecture. This is exactly what I need, and the assistants are pretty good at following those instructions.
Yeah.
If you start with a pretty vague prompt, sure, it will do it, but you are going to get like what is commonly known as slop.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of it. A lot of it in a short amount of time. Yeah, the planning step is, you can't overlook it. It seems obvious now, it wasn't at first, that we should probably spend some time planning, but the great thing is that the tool is a great assistant at planning as well until you're ready to start coding. At Vestmark, we did a company-wide training that I led on how to use Claude Code. I think one of the first things I pointed out is, don't forget to run init first and let it like scan your project and put together its own understanding. Then you read that and say like, okay, here's what it knew and here's what it missed. Then you update the ClaudeMD, then you start planning and say, here's what I think I want to do, let's build a plan together. And then that plan turns into the set of tasks that ultimately need to be completed. That workflow has, more often than not, been the most successful way to get something new built and deployed and delivered. The other thing that it's really good at, though, like we're talking about building new stuff and writing new stuff, that's great. And I think I self-identify as a maker. I love making things and building things. It's also incredibly good at helping you with an impenetrable code base. That's something, like a legacy code base.
Yes.
So at Vestmark, all of our new products are being built using Ruby, but we also have a core piece of technology that's really the heart of what we do. And it is a very sophisticated Java code base that has been, lovingly maintained over the last 2 decades. And when a new developer joins the team, it can be really difficult to become proficient in this code base very quickly, because there's a lot of algorithms in there that won't be intuitive to somebody who's not from this industry. And having access to an assistant that can help you to very quickly get answers about it, it eliminates all those things that new developers run into. Like, who do I go ask a question to? Am I going to be embarrassed to ask this? Is this a dumb question? Should I already know? Right? You're never going to be embarrassed to ask your coding assistant a question,
because
it
was no
judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
No judgment. And so suddenly now I'm able to, I hear this idea that like the demise of the junior developer or something like that. I have a very different relationship to AI with respect to a junior developer, because now a junior developer can join the team and become proficient in our code base in way less time than they ever could before. And that means that there's room for them to come in and become and be productive and be valuable without having to spend 6-8 months becoming
It's
an
a faster
expert.
onboarding as well.
That's right.
And yes, it is a pretty good opportunity to be able to get people into this mindset that even though we have these tools that are writing code for us, you don't need to lose and pretty much miss the foundations.
That's
the
right.
foundations are the most important part. Freedom, this is amazing discussion. I'm inspired to give it a try to RubyLLM and start like doing a couple
You're
of
gonna
demos
enjoy it.
on Heroku AI, of course.
Yep.
And see how can we plug it in with MCP and do crazy experiments. So this is a pretty inspiring. Good to have you here in the Codish
Thanks a lot.
podcast, and looking forward for a new opportunity to see what's new with Vestmark and how your solution is evolving.
Can't wait to show you what's next.
Awesome. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Codish podcast. Codish is produced by Heroku, the easiest way to deploy, manage, and scale your applications in the cloud. If you'd like to learn more about Codish or any of Heroku's podcasts, please visit heroku.com/podcasts.